Well, I'm going to start off here. I know everyone has a question of just kind of Raleigh's status, and I'll start off by answering it. As long as Raleigh can string 2 good days of practice together, beginning with today and tomorrow, he'll play against Alabama for the first time. As we've kind of explained, since his injury, it was an 8 to 12 week diagnosis. He, as of yesterday, was at 10 weeks. I think the number one thing with us just dealing with him is making sure that that we did not rush him back, because anytime you have surgery, the number one thing that you can cost yourself is further injury to the same foot or situation, or perhaps even another injury if you go from nothing to full blast. And we've really progressed him very slowly. To his credit, hardest thing to do when you're injured and you can't run is to not put on weight. And not only did he not put on weight, but working hand in hand with Chris Rounds and Justin Kokoski and our staff, he's actually in better shape than he was almost prior to getting hurt, meaning his body fat's down, his weight's down, and he worked really, really hard, which is a tremendous compliment to him. So in terms of the progression, I think the next phase for him and everybody that follows us, you can't expect him to all of a sudden just walk out there for the jump ball and be the best version of Raleigh Alkins that he can be. It's going to take him a little bit of time. He knows that. But there's nothing like getting into a game, getting game experience, game conditioning. And again, he has to string together 2 good practices. Hopefully we'll have no setbacks. But anticipating that he gets through these 2 practices, we're thrilled to have him join us. And I think his role will progress, as will his production. And I think, the hope for us here is when we get after Christmas and he's been with us playing both in games and practicing regularly, that he'll be able to hit his stride early in conference play, as opposed to 2 or 3 weeks into conference play if we weren't able to get him back now.
So what do we need to see in those 2 practices to kind of give you the go-ahead and say, okay, he's ready?
He's ready physically. It's just a matter of meaning that he doesn't have any setbacks, that nothing bad happens, injury-wise. And but like we talked about, we've given it a lot of time. He's worked very, very hard. He's beyond 10 weeks, so this is actually the beginning of the 11th week. So he's right where he should be, and again, I'm happy for him and looking forward to seeing him get out there and play.
Was him not playing 100% because of the injury? I think,
like we always said, it was an 8 to 12 week injury, and right now he's above and beyond 10 weeks, so he's ready to go.
Yeah, I think just because you said you can't comment the other day, I think that threw us for a loop, maybe because maybe something else happened.
No.
How is it fitting him in, having not played for 10 weeks or whatever, with the other guys already playing together?
Yeah, that's always a challenge, and it's a challenge for Raleigh because he has high expectations, and you want to play well, and no matter if you've been out or not. But I talked to him here this week a lot, and will continue to do so, just to make sure he understands that he has to expect that it's not going to feel completely normal. But I believe this, in no time I think he'll shape into form, because he's in tremendous shape. He's practicing, and he's practicing hard, and he'll be ready for the game. So how much he plays, I think that remains to be seen. He's certainly not going to start here in his first game back, but he's going to be available and add to our team.
Do you liken it to a boost, like you said last year, I think that's the word you used, when Trier came back halfway through and kind of gave you a new spark or whatever energy? Do you think that he'll have that same effect?
No question. One of the reasons that our basketball team was so well thought of here prior to us playing a game is, who we returned from a year ago, and not just who we were bringing in the freshman class. So Raleigh was a big part of that. You forget a double-figure scorer, somebody who I believe started every game but one. He was at his best in March. I think he really progressed as the year went on. But what he gives us is he gives us a physical presence at that position, both rebounding on defense and offense, defending whoever he defends, and somebody who really has a great understanding of how to pass the ball and make this simple play. One of the things, because of how he's built, that you take for granted is just he's got a high basketball IQ. He knows how to make the right play, when to make the right play. He's very, very unselfish with how he goes about playing the game. And those are all things that any team would love to add, and we're certainly no different.
What kind of role do you see with like Emmanuel and Dylan and Brandon now that Raleigh's going to be, hopefully, he's healthy, taking off a lot of those minutes at 3?
Well, those guys have all improved and progressed, especially Dylan Smith and Brandon Randolph. We would not have beaten Texas A&M if they both didn't do what they did. They ended up in double figures scoring. I think Brandon especially, he's proved to us that he can score and he can make shots. We watch him every day as well. For freshmen, it's as much what they do every day as it is games, especially here early on in November and December. It doesn't always translate. They have to get the nerves under control. They have to get a sense of what it's like to play against different styles. But all of our players and our team in general, now that we've played as many games as we have, and we've played more games away from McHale than we have at home, we've gone through a number of experiences now where I think all of those guys are more about how they're going to play in games moving forward, and it being more like we see them every day. And that's really what you want. You want them, who you have, how they play. You want it to show up in games. And, Alex Barcelo is another example. He played really well against Texas A&M, and wish we would have had him in there even a little bit more in the second half. But he missed a couple shots, but they were all really good shots. He had 4 assists, no turnovers, did a good job on defense, and it was good to see him settle in because, again, when you're around these guys every day, you truly see how they play. And I thought Alex, again, played in the game how he practiced.
How much of a boost will Raleigh give you guys on defense?
He'll give us a boost. He knows what to do. Like I said, Raleigh walks in the gym 6'5", 220. I mean, you're not going to just knock him around. If anything, he'll knock you around. And that's one of the reasons he was so successful as a freshman, and that physically he was ready to go. And he's that much bigger and stronger right now than he was a year ago. But he's a much smarter player, a lot like you're watching some of our younger players progress defensively. He's already made that progression. He played 37 games. He knows what to do and how to do it. Now, is he going to be 100%? He's 100% healthy. Is he going to be 100% the quality of player that he'll eventually become? No, because he's missed so much time. Out of the 10+ weeks that Raleigh has been out, he was non-weight bearing for about 6 of those weeks. So forget basketball, he wasn't even able to run. And but over the last month, he's been able to do that, and now that he's able to practice, it'll come back quickly.
Was he able to do any type of conditioning besides obviously running?
Yeah, in the pool, on the bike, all the things that you can do with an injury like that.
Maybe is the biggest takeaway from just sitting back over these 10 weeks and kind of watching everything progress?
Well, when you always play basketball or the sport, usually start in middle school or grade school, whatever, you never really have had a life without a team or able to play if you haven't been injured before. And in his case, he really hasn't had this type of injury. You miss the game, and you find that why you play it is you love it. You love to play the sport. And with that, obviously, Raleigh, like some of our other guys, has a really big future beyond Arizona. But the first thing that I think hits you is that you just want to play basketball again. And so I think, the love of the sport, you miss it. And the second thing is, no matter how hard we try to keep him engaged or he tries to still be a part of what we do, when you're not able to actually be out there, there's a detachment. You feel alone. And you very much miss the camaraderie, being out there with the guys, being a real part of it every day. So even since he's started to practice, you notice kind of a spark in his eye. So I'm happy for him. Again, you want all of your players to do well. He's gone through a lot getting hurt when he did, so we're excited to have him back.
Is him coming back a sign that now that he's coming back, that everybody, as far as this investigation that has been commissioned by the university, is cleared and said it's okay? I mean, because he's the only, as we know, it was hearsay, but there was the one agent who said in that complaint somebody's been paid.
My focus is coaching our team.
but he'll have the whole team back.
So how much have you been able to put him in so far? 20%, 30%? Just it's gradual.
He's practiced, I think, 3 times live. But in the practices that he's practiced live, he's gone from start to finish. And he's also taken part in our warm-ups and, our game day shoot-around recently for the first time as well. So, again, you add it up, I'd say he's been active in terms of being able to be out there in real competitive time about 1 week is where it's at.
I asked you this earlier, maybe a month ago. Are you as a team, more comfortable playing at a smaller pace, under 70, 75, rather than the 80, 85?
If you shoot quick, number one, you better have a lot more talent than the other team, game in, game out. And the shots that you get that are quick better be good because especially playing on the road, it's very difficult to be successful. It's very difficult to be consistent. That doesn't mean we want to walk the ball up, but a pace, it's all relative. You have to play at a pace where the shots that you take are good ones. And if you have a quick one, great. We'll always take that. But if you don't have a quick one, to take ill-advised shots and the other part with a quick tempo, extraordinarily quick tempo, and we learned this in the Bahamas, this isn't an equal opportunity offense here. This isn't, again, you walk out there and you're one of the 5 players that I should shoot the same amount as everybody else. There are extreme differences among the 5 players that are out there on offense, and it's up to each player to clearly understand what I mean by that. Who should get the ball, who should shoot the ball, and, to be able to shoot it in the first 2 or 3 passes and play just, hey, we're awesome, we play fast, that means a lot of shots are going up by a lot of different people. So, we want to strike in transition. We certainly want to be fast into what we do. We want to have a good push. That's not furthest thing from the truth is we want to walk the ball up. But I think that the shot selection, the turnovers, the faster you play, the more turnovers you have, the more you have decisions being made on the run. So all of that has to factor in. And the other part of it is no different than football. You play that ultra-fast offense, it puts a lot more pressure on your defense. And basketball is the same way. You're playing against really good coaches, organized teams on offense that have good players. You start shooting quick and you're on defense, hurts your defense. It's harder to get stops. So there is a balance. I think it's one of many lessons that we've learned here where maybe as we entered the Bahamas, we felt maybe better about playing at a faster speed, not worrying as much about who had the ball. Coming out of the Bahamas, we clearly knew there's a significant difference. And I think we're still not there in terms of recognizing who should shoot, who should not, and who needs to touch the ball every time down. Alonzo and DeAndre, just look at their statistics. I think it's proof that they're very, very talented offensive players. You add Raleigh into that, I think you have kind of a third guy that can do a lot of different things. And then, it's not that the other guys can't play. It's just on this particular team at this moment, everybody has to know who they are.
Since you said a few weeks ago that you were going to play DeAndre and do something more together, how have you kind of evaluated that pairing when they're on the floor? Well,
a lot of that's on DeAndre. We're asking him to do an awful lot, to play the 5 and the 4 on offense. Those are 2 different positions. You have to learn. One play means you learn actually 2. So the learning curve for somebody who plays 2 positions as a freshman is always steeper. So we're asking him to do that. Number 2, defensively, with the different types of 4 men that we face, he's played against maybe the best 3-point shooter on the other team. He's played against a traditional big man like Texas A&M Robert Williams. He's played against guys that move a lot. So when you play the 4 defensively, that's a tough task for a young big guy. But DeAndre's 7 feet tall, so his mobility isn't in question. It's just the understanding and the know-how. But he's working every day, and I think that asking him to do both will bring out the best in him, and I think it will also bring out the best in our team because having those 2 guys in the game at the same time really gives us an advantage on offense. Just like I'm describing how we have to match up with the other team, every time that we have those 2 guys in, a smaller 4-man has to match up with one of those 2. Again, it goes back to what I just answered. And when we have that group in, we have to be an ultra smart team to utilize those two guys as best we can, not act as if we're just a normal team. You have two 7-footers who can both score around the basket. We have to take advantage of that.
Coach, Collin Sexton has some type of apparent eye injury, so he's questionable for Saturday. What have you seen on tape from him, and how much of a difference would it be if he couldn't go against you guys?
Well, I'm hoping that he can play. I mean, he's one of the most exciting players in the college basketball. And, I've known him because we watched him, tried to recruit him early on, watched him with USA Basketball, and great talent, tremendous competitor, plays with a spirit and a fire that you don't oftentimes see from a young player. His passion, his confidence, it permeates through the teams that he's on. You can't help but have confidence with a guy like him on your team because of how confident, talented, and the way he goes about things. But, he lives at the foul line. I mean, he's shot 74 free throws in 8 games, which is unheard of for a point guard, averaging 20 points per game. But he's a great, great competitor. And, the thing that I love about our non-conference schedule, man, it's littered with tremendous players. I mean, you look at almost every position in basketball, we're playing against some of the best. I've watched what, Isaac Haas has done at Purdue since he's left our game. And, he's a wrecking crew, just one of the best low-post players in the game, somebody who's just clearly even bigger than DeAndre and Dusan. And, he hurt us, but it was a great experience to play against somebody like that because you get better and you learn more about your team. Well, Collin Sexton, he represents a great challenge as a point guard. So it's not just our point guard, it's our team that's going to have to deal with him. And, hopefully he'll play.
What did you see from did you even watch the 3-on-5 that they had against Minnesota?
A little bit. Hopefully we're not going to have that situation. So, but I think it speaks to his confidence and his ability.
Faced a guy like Collin Sexton, or do players come up to you and say, "Oh, I want to take on the challenge of defending him," or does this team not have? Because I know you mentioned Kadeem Allen was important. Does this team have someone that will come to you and want to take on that challenge?
I don't know. I haven't asked them yet. That's a good question. Maybe that's what I'll do here today is just figure it out, ask them and see who steps forward, But I think the thing that you have to guard against with someone like him, this isn't a one-on-one matchup. It's so much the team. One of the things that he thrives in doing is he uses his ball screens and he makes his teammates better. He's a really good passer, but that's where he draws a lot of fouls. He's also tremendous in transition. Those two things don't fall on the guy guarding him. It falls on the team. Everybody has to get back, on the ball screen defense. If your man sets that screen, you've got to be responsible and stop the ball and do a great job. So it's a team challenge. It's not a one-on-one challenge, but you're right. Somebody has to guard him, and whoever that player is, he has to be careful that he doesn't get in foul trouble, and he's got to really take on the challenge because, again, best compliment I can pay Collin Sexton is, he's just an incredible competitor, and that competition in big games stands out, so we have to be able to match that.
How's Emmanuel dealing with his knees?
He's making progress. He doesn't have an injury. He just has tendonitis, and he has to get both of his legs stronger. So, it's chronic. When you pound in practice, you start to play, 3 games in 3 days. If you remember the Purdue game, he had one of his best games at Arizona against SMU where I thought his effort was great. He really defended, but the next game he wasn't able to play. He could only play a couple minutes because he couldn't run. So that's certainly affected him, but he's a young player with a bright future, and that doesn't mean he won't play this year. We're counting on all of our guys, but I think a big part for Emmanuel is just continuing to grow and get better.
Alabama's kind of a scrappy team, maybe in the way Johnson played as a player. Do you see that? And defensively, I guess they've been pretty good, or how would you describe them?
No, they play hard. Their defense is top 20 in the country, top 25 in the country. They block shots. They have 2 players who block shots, but Dante Hall, he's a great shot blocker. He has 25 blocks. And Giddens, who's a transfer from Ohio State, is also somebody who can block shots. So sometimes that shot blocking makes your defense. Texas A&M really benefits a lot because they have multiple guys who block shots. So we have to be aware of that. But they play hard. They play 10 players. They sub a lot, so their bench gets in the game. And when you play 10, you can really use your athleticism. And I would say they'll be more of one of the most. I would say they'll be one of the most athletic teams we play. I think you play with great effort. So yes, I mean, you're top 20, top 25 in defense. That speaks for itself. I wish we were top 25 in defense.
With Dusan defensively, Sean, how can he be better defending that spin move on the block that we saw Tyler Davis use a lot against him?
Dusan just has to use his gifts. His gifts are his size and his discipline. And, sometimes a guy might score over him, but when you're 7-1, it's going to work against that player as well. So being in the right position the most often he can be. Dusan is probably more talented on offense than he is defensively, but we're really counting on him to be solid. And against Texas A&M, he was very solid. And really, even the game before against UNLV, in both of those games, we refer to it kind of as, did you do your job? And on defense for him, he did. And rebounding is a big deal. He didn't have as many rebounds against Texas A&M, but I think he's rebounding as well as he's rebounded at any point in his career.
Coach, you had a couple breakdowns on inbounds plays against Sexton A&M. Is that something that's easily fixable, or is that something that just comes with playing time?
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen a breakdown like we've had ever in my life. I mean, you can go to a kindergarten, grade school game. They didn't run the play. We just didn't match up. So the referee gave the guy the ball. Nobody was guarding the man on the right block, and they threw it to him, and he shot it. And then you're right. And then they executed a couple of times on curls and caught it. But, those first one is just responsibility. You can't play college basketball at Arizona if you can't match up on an out-of-bounds play. But the second part is just those are the little details that add up to winning and losing. And if you lose a game like the one we were just in, you point to those two things. 4 points that we can really control. And by the way, when we had the ball on offense, there are a couple turnovers we had that just, you could see it coming a mile away. And just because you're supposed to pass the ball to that guy, you don't throw it to him when you see the defender running full speed to steal the ball. But that's really where our team is. There's some youth. There's some where we just have to get better. I think that, for example, Raleigh would match up on the underneath out-of-bounds play. And I think that if he saw a guy running like a train to steal the ball, he'd probably look at him, pass fake, and not throw it. So those are errors that experience takes care of and quality of play. But we have to get over those types of things. Those are self-inflicted plays that don't allow us to win against the best teams. We did a lot of great things against Texas A&M. But that was one area that we'll deal with here over the next couple of days. And then it becomes, are we going to be better against Alabama in that area? And if that's the case, that's part of what you learn in non-conference play, lessons like the one you talked about.
If you were a 1 or a 2 or whatever number you want to give it defensively, where are you right now, and what's the ceiling still?
I mean, we have a long, long ways to go to be a good defensive team, but we're better than we were in the Bahamas. That I know. We've made incremental improvement, but we have 2 more days of practice. So when we practice, that's on the top of the list. I mean, we're working very hard. We're demanding effort. Players are getting repetitions, and sometimes it starts with the oldest guys. Guys like Dusan and Alonso and Parker. We're really counting on those 3 guys to set the tone early in games, to do it every day in practice so that our younger guys learn from them and to be the most ready that they can. When we walk out there, there's a reason that those 3 players start the game. So the responsibility is to just be a good defender themselves. And part of our improvement is, I think, those guys to really take ownership in that area, and they did a better job in the last 2 games than maybe they have all season long.
This is I think one of the last games you plugged into the schedule, and if I remember right, Greg Burns said he checked with Avery and then and he was okay, and they went to you, or were you kind of looking for a home and home, and how did it work out in your mind?
Well, it's not easy to get home and away series in McHale, especially with a team from the SEC that would be willing to start here. It's not as easy. They're just, if you look at the Big Ten, for example, and I know this because of my brother more than anything, I mean, if you're those guys, you have X number of built-in games. First, you play the Big Ten ACC Challenge. That's always going to be an ultra-competitive game. Then you have, like, if you're at Indiana, you're going to play Notre Dame or you're going to play Louisville in addition to that. Now they play 20 conference games instead of 18. So do you really want to add and go on the road? Do you even need to do that? That's the question those guys are asking. And then, you know, the Kentuckys of the world or Kansas, when you add in the Champions Classic and some of those things that they're in, maybe an exempt tournament, it's just mathematically there aren't the opportunities now that there once were where teams want to play home and away. So when we had this as an opportunity, we jumped on it, and you know, hopefully we can take advantage because we're playing against a talented team, a well-coached team, a team from a conference that has a lot of respect, and I believe that a team in March that will be in the NCAA tournament. So all the things that you really want, and hopefully we'll have a great crowd, and more important than that, our team, we continue to progress and play a great game because we're going to need to play our best to beat Alabama.
Did you see the way they're going to have the new quadrants to the committee to look at the games you played instead of a hard and fast 1 to 150, 50, that they're going to scale it on home versus, and then a home game might mean less. I didn't know if you thought, what you thought of that, and if it could lead to more home and homes or teams willing to play home and homes, even with what you're saying.
Yep. I think one of the things that's really going to change college basketball is these conferences going to 20 games. I mean, if you just look at it from the math perspective, some of the conferences that are playing 20 games don't have just 12 teams. I mean, they have 16 teams. So that's 16 teams instead of playing 18 games against each other. They're now playing 20 games against each other. That takes a lot of non-conference opportunities away. And then I think the thirst of playing these neutral court games, whether it's a single game, like I know ASU's playing St. John's in LA, like we played Gonzaga, so that's a great opportunity for them on a neutral court. But when you start taking advantage of these neutral court opportunities, we just did it against Texas A&M, play an exempt tournament, and then you have the world of college basketball going to 20 games. There aren't going to be, in my opinion, even as many opportunities to play home and away as there are now.
Well, do you think it makes a difference then at all what they're saying now as far as, I think, you know, the home games has got to be a top 135 or something now, whereas on the road you can play a top 75 and it still is in that first quadrant as far as...
I'm not familiar with what you're talking about though, so I probably should be. I'm sure I'll learn. But you know, our schedule obviously is done this year, and I don't have any fear at all of our schedule not being good enough, meaning our non-conference schedule, because that's what we can control. When you consider that we've played already 3 neutral court games, we've played four neutral court games and 1 true away game with another one looming. I mean, that's 6 games away from McHale, and then you know the games that we're playing inside of McHale, which include this game here on Saturday. When you add up our 13 non-conference games, I mean, you clearly see that we had an intent to challenge our team, and that's why you lose 3 in a row sometimes. I mean, it's not always fun, but when you do that, you improve, and the sky's not falling in the months of November and December, especially for us. I mean, we've played every game without saying a word with one of our team's best players, and you know, when he gets back, especially once he regains form, and as long as we could stay healthy, there'll be an upside to this team that maybe we've never had when you look at where we were around Thanksgiving and maybe where we can be sometime mid-February.
When you look at, sorry, Stu, just follow up, when you look at the one-time bye games, are you shooting for 1 to 100 to 200, you know, somebody like Bakersfield that you bring in or whatever? I mean, you don't want to play somebody in the 250.
No, that's right. We really want to avoid you know, that upper 200, 300. Sometimes in your attempt to do that, you can get it wrong because if those teams have injuries, you know, they can go from being really, really good. I think Texas Southern was like that a couple years ago, maybe last year, where, you know, one of their players left them midway through, had a couple injuries, and maybe they weren't as good. I could be using the wrong example. Maybe it was one of the Southern, maybe. But Bakersfield's a good team. You know, Long Beach, we bank on those teams once they get into conference play that they'll be tough to beat, and they play a good schedule. So you're right. We have a strategy for that, and hopefully it'll be right.
If I could ask a silly question, but I get it this asked all the time, and maybe you addressed it before, but what's up with the uniforms, color-wise?
I mean, Nike sent us the uniforms, and we mix them up. We wear them.
You don't know what to say, because they're gold, and everyone says what's up with the color.
It's to celebrate copper. It's actually copper.
Does Nike have like a minimum time you're supposed to wear each one to?
No, but I think they expect us to wear each one, and they treat our program really well and have for decades. So the fact that they treat us like that, give us those types of uniforms, it's exciting for our players. It's, they I think in some ways they like to mix it up themselves, pick and choose.
How much say do you get into the day-to-day, what uniform you guys wear, and then also how much say do you get in like the design of what it looks like?
I mean, I never ask. I just want our guys to wear the same color socks, and we finally have everyone locked in on the same color shoes. So as long as that's the case, then I'm good. It's so much more about being ready to play the game than those other things. But it's it's fun for our players, and I love the style of our uniforms. I think they do too. And whatever we're supposed to do there in terms of Nike, that's what we'll do.
Connect with James Whitford at all about his big win the other night over Notre Dame?
Yeah, of course. I'm really proud. I mean, there's 4 assistant coaches that left me to become head coaches. Joe Pasternak, he's already won more games this season than they won the entire year ago. I think they were a 6-win team, had some injuries. Joe's won 7. He's 7-2 and has a really good team in year 1. James Whitford has done just a great job at Ball State, and he's had his hardship. I mean, he had an unreal tragedy this year, which isn't easy to deal with in life, let alone if you're in charge of a team. And to beat Notre Dame at Notre Dame speaks for itself. And then Chris Mack and Arch, I mean, those 2 guys, to me, they've emerged as 2 of the best coaches in our game at Indiana and Xavier. So I'm proud of those guys. They were all a part of what we did. They worked really, really hard, contributed to the success that I have had at both Xavier and Arizona, and it's great to see them do well. And we have a coaching staff right now that I believe has coaches that have been head coaches that will get an opportunity again and will thrive and shine like those 4.